For more on this, we now speak to political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze, and he joins us via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on SABC News. Of course, a lot of work is being done ahead of the 2024 elections, especially should we find ourselves, or we will be finding ourselves, with independent candidates, and also at the same time dealing with the issue around coalition government. So this move that we are seeing, do you think this is a step in the right direction for these oversight roles being created to improve, of course, the effectiveness of oversight?
Yes, this will be very important. Oversight is one of the main functions of Parliament, not only in South Africa, but all over the world. We see it very much in the way in which the different committees of Parliament function, but also more in general. For example, the questions that's being asked in Parliament by the different parties for, especially members of government, the reports that are presented to Parliament, the debates that are as a result of that unfolds there. So there are many forms, many instruments for oversight that exist in Parliament. We've seen that the fact that Parliament was actually criticized for not doing enough in the Zondo Commission elicited quite a lot of response from Parliament ultimately in defense of themselves, of saying that they are trying as much as possible to do it. But the notion of oversight is certainly on the agenda. It's something that not only the national parliament, but also the provincial parliaments and even local government, local authorities, local councils will have to do. It's one of the main functions. That is why we elect members of parliament, is for them to be able to do this, perform this role, to keep the executive accountable and to make sure that we as the public are represented there. So it is, in a sense, the oil of the machine of the legislature is the oversight function. With this election now, as you indicated, the new developments there, both the possibility of coalitions, as well as the fact that half of all the members of all the national and provincial legislatures will consist of either independent representatives or individuals who have been nominated by political parties, means that the composition of those who are involved in the oversight is going to change. I think that is the adjustments that they were talking about and that they will have to make after these elections.
And looking at these adjustments that needs to be made for our country because of the direction in which we are going, what do you think needs to be prioritized, especially now that we are looking at, the inclusion of the independent candidates?
Well, first of all, it will be how they can form a group with some power in order to exercise that they are not simply individuals. Because if they act as individuals, then their impact on this process will be very limited. It's only because you have caucuses, political caucuses, you have parliamentary caucuses, you have groups of political parties together, that they can, in many instances, for example, in a parliamentary committee, they can actually have an influence. You can take, for example, SCOPA, the Select Committee on Public Accounts, is a very good example of that, where the different state departments, as well as the ministers, the executive, must account for how the budgets are managed and what happened, and the reports of the Auditor General, if those reports are, for example, critical or some areas are highlighted that need some attention. And if you are a more organized group, then it's easier to do it than as an individual. So I think those who will become independent candidate representatives, we don't know how many of them will be really independent and how many will be nominated by political parties. But a combination of those, they will have to find their own feet of how they are going to manage in between the different political parties in processes in those committees, for example.
And I was coming to that, actually. When you look at, the role of parties and the role of the independent candidates, how different will their roles be when it comes to the issues around looking at the oversight of Parliament?
Well, those who are truly independent, who have no connections whatsoever with political parties, they can play therefore much more of an independent role. So they don't have to toe the line with other members of the same party, that they have some instructions from their parliamentary caucus, for example, to take a particular position in, let's say, one of the portfolio committees. So they can decide for themselves. But as I said, their impact, the power that they will have to make an impact and to change the direction of those discussions will be limited. So they will have to be quite strategic in what they are going to do that. How are they, with whom are they going to align themselves in those meetings in Parliament in terms of the positions that they will take up. They can't be truly just independent and stand on their own. Then they will, to a large extent, have no impact on the proceedings.
And how effective will this be, for the running of our Parliament?
Well, I think what it will do, it will make Parliament more diverse. There will be more different voices. There's already about 13 parties in Parliament at the moment. So it's not as if it is only the 2 or 3 or 4 big parties that can dictate everything. But if there are more party representatives from either truly independent ones or those from other parties that are much smaller and don't have necessarily a presence amongst the proportional representation parties, that create more diversity in Parliament. And I think when it comes to especially voting in Parliament, we had some important votes in the past, for example, about the impeachment of the public protector. There's 2 votes in the pipeline about 2 judges that might follow the same route. There's the possibility in the past of motions of no confidence. And it's there where these independents or individual representatives might play a very decisive role ultimately. So it means that there's going to be much more caucusing, negotiations, positioning that they will take place in order to see what type of formations or groups in Parliament will ultimately be formed.
And how important will this be for a democracy like ours that is turning 30 this year?
Well, it can go 2 ways. The one way is that it will mature our democracy. It means that there will be more representation. The representation will be more diverse. It will therefore be more inclusive in terms of the political spectrum. That's the one option. The other option is what many people are scared of, and that it will lead to some form of fragmentation, of dysfunctionality, that it won't be able to come to conclusions, that there will be fighting amongst the members of Parliament. But that they won't be able to take really decisions. So I think it's going to depend a lot on leadership within Parliament, from the different leaders of the political parties, as well as some of these others that will be there, to build alliances, to build groups beyond just the formal coalitions that might exist there, but also alliances between parties in terms of how they are going to vote or adopt a particular approach in the different debates in Parliament.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and your contributions this evening here in SABC News. That is Professor Dirk Kotze. He is a political analyst, just giving us his insights there in terms of the work that is being done in preparation for the 2024 elections.